The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello, good evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're watching this, and welcome to the Sciforror Film Podcast, Halloween Special, Part 1. This is in two parts. We're doing 1 week this week and 1 week next week. Well, we'll be doing 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, another week. Anyway, hello, I'm Andy Walker. I'm here again as usual, but this time in a frame in a spooky house. And I am here with my son, or the head of my son, Scott. Hello, Scott.
Hello there.
Hello. And it's all spookiness and everything.
I love the fact that you said, welcome to the Halloween, like, part 1.
Yeah.
And then said, yeah, this is going to be in 2 parts.
Yeah, well, there might have been in 15 parts. Might have spent the whole year doing Halloween and nothing else.
Yeah, possibly.
Any road up. How the hell are you?
Very confused by the fact that this is swapped it round, so I feel like if I go right on the screen, I go, it's very weird.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
Good. I'm very glad to hear it.
How are you?
I am somewhat, yes. No, I'm okay. I've been, immersed in horror films and things for a few days, so that's been quite interesting. And stuff. Yeah. So, yes. So what we are doing is we are watching purely horror films for 2 weeks.
Not just purely horror films, though.
No.
They are also around the event.
They are all connected with Halloween or Samhain or whatever you want to pronounce it. Yes, so we have 2 short films and a feature film this week and the same next week, all of which have a connection to Halloween. And yes, I would recommend that you go and watch it. You see, the ones we're doing today, because this is coming out before Halloween, you can watch them on Sunday or Monday, rather, on Halloween Day itself. And the ones that we recommend next week, you could watch next week, or you could watch them on. You could also watch them on Halloween if you can travel in time and watch it before we put it out, or you can watch it Halloween next year.
Yeah, you can keep it all lined up for a whole year, build up the suspense, and then let us know whether or not you think we were right.
Yeah, if you remember who we are by then. So anyway, onwards and upwards with this week's helping, as it were. And very first one off, we have a film from 2021 called Happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Now, this is by Well Versed Entertainment. The film was written and directed by Mike Heslin. The cast is Brooks Brantley, Luciana Folhaber, Harrison Lee, Truman Lee, Sky Toronto, and Nick Wilson. And the synopsis for this says, it's Halloween night and something is off. The streets are quiet with no trick-or-treaters in sight. So who is ringing the doorbell? Yeah. So what do you think?
I read the synopsis of this and I was a bit dubious because like I am with a lot of Halloween films, they're normally like proper gory slasher films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I genuinely really liked this film, actually. It was very well done, and the the creepiness of the mask, I think, added to it. I've
Yeah,
never been sort of creeped out by a mask, but the pure, I think the mask, because it was just obviously it's not latex. It looked like one of the plastic ones, so there was no emotion to it. It was just plain, and with the darkness behind it as well, I thought was just so well done.
yeah, yeah. No, I must admit, I mean, I like it. It's not great. It's not the greatest film like this I've ever seen, but it's got a great look. I think the acting and as you say, the mask and the costume with it and that sort of thing is really good. And I think the idea is good as well. It sort of, it works really well. Um, but when I watched it, it kind of, by the time we got to the end, it left me feeling a bit, nah, yeah, it was all right. I don't know why it made me feel like that, really. I just
See, I
think it's a bit, I don't know. There was something for me, there was something missing, but I don't know what it was.
see, I really liked the ending. I thought it was very well because it was sort of obviously there's no explanation to what's going on. It's just Halloween, it's spooky stuff like that.
Yeah,
But obviously, as he walked, like the guy walks down the road and other people start joining him, I was like, it proper left me wanting to know more. What was going on? I did have a sort of purge feel
yeah,
about it, but
yeah, I know
I
what you mean.
I don't know. It left me wanting to know more about it.
Yeah. I don't know why it made me feel that way, really, because it kind of had everything you normally get in these sort of films, but I just thought I don't know, maybe I've just seen one too many of this type of thing, and I just kind of went, oh, it's all right. You know, well, there are occasions when we don't necessarily agree
Nope.
oh, you disappeared. Ah, you
Yeah,
went all,
I did
all
a Harry
invisible.
Potter thing. I travelled to another picture from him.
You went, you went all invisible from me. Um, but yeah, no, there are going to be times when we disagree on things,
Yeah,
no, it's always quite good to see when we do find ones that we disagree on, because we don't disagree that much normally. Okay, so the second film is another short film from 2020 this time, called Halloween Alone.
mm.
And this is a film made by Chandler Thornton. It's won lots of awards, and this was made entirely on his own during quarantine. Did the
Oh wow.
whole thing himself during quarantine. The synopsis for this says, "Let him in. He just loves a good trick."
Mm.
Hmm. I mean, it's got a good look. I think the effects are incredible, given the fact that he was totally on his own. And there's a couple of them I had to go back a bit and watch again, because sort of only saw them as they were. It's like there's a bit where a face appears, and it's only after it had gone away that I was like, "Hang on a minute."
Yeah. Well, I did the same. I did the same thing. I looked at it and I was like, because of the way that the camera's shot, or the angle shot, I was drawn to the doors anyway.
Yeah,
And I was sitting there, and I was sat there for so long staring at them that I had to go back. So I was like, was that in the film, or was my brain trying to find something there?
yeah, yeah.
But I think it's so well done.
It's good. I mean, it's got a great atmosphere to it, and his acting's not bad. It's okay. I like it as a film, and I think considering that he made it on his own, it's really impressive. It's really well done, really well put together. And the thing about these short films of Halloween, a lot of the time they have the same sort of ideas. You just get them redone in a slightly different way. And it's not the first time I've seen things like this, but it's a good little film that does what it needs to do, and it's as I say, considering he did it on its own, I think it's really well done.
Yeah. I will say my only thing with this, and say this about a lot of horror films, was the whole real life sort of aspect. Now, for me personally, if I went out into the dark and see a note that said "I'm waiting for you downstairs," I wouldn't go and check. Or I would.
Yeah,
I would at least lock. I would lock the door and then sort of phone someone to come and help.
yeah, no, I know exactly what you
But
mean.
it's just sort of, yeah. I'm like sort of they're reading the card and I'm like, oh, I'll go and check.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yes, I know
Or
exactly.
even if I did, I'd go down there armed with more than just a tool.
Yeah. Oh, something's happening. Oh, we've swapped places. That's bizarre.
Is magic mirrors. Magic
Magic,
mirrors, magic paintings, I mean.
magic paintings, magic something on here, magic mushrooms, probably.
Who is that
Uh,
glowing potion in front of us?
oh, there's George sitting down there with his little green eyes.
With a quote, and I'm not a cat.
Yeah. Anyway, right. So we are on to the feature film now. Our feature film this week is from 1986, and it's a film called Trick or Treat. Now, this is a film that was directed by Charles Martin Smith, and this was actually his first ever film. And he did some TV stuff in the 90s.
Yeah.
Other than that, didn't really make anything else that would fit into our sort of thing, as it were. Now, the writers, the original story and the screenplay were written by Rhett Topham, who did some TV stuff in the 80s, and he also had to do with the writing of 976 Evil and 976 Evil 2, and The Nightmare Begins Again, which was a straight-to-video film connected with The Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
And the screenplay was also co-written by Michael S. Murphy, who also helped to write a film called The Supernaturals in 1986 as well. The other writer on the screenplay was Joel Suison, and he helped to write the screenplay for The Supernaturals, and also had to do with the writing of The Prophecy 3: The Ascent in 2000, which was a straight-to-video thing, Highlander Endgame in the year 2000, Dracula 2001, which came out in 2000, confusing, Mimic 2 in 2001, which went straight to video. Got a few straight to videos here. Dracula 2 Ascension 2003, straight to video. The Prophecy Uprising 2005, straight to video. The Prophecy Forsaken 2005, straight to video. Dracula 3 Legacy 2005, straight to video. And Hellraiser Hellworld 2005, straight to video. Hollow Man 2 2006, which is straight to video. Pulse 2 Afterlife in 2008. Pulse 3 in 2008. Children of the Corn Genesis in 2010, I think it was. Piranha 3DD in 2012. Cam to Cam 2014, and Children of the Corn Runaway in 2018, which was another straight to video.
Okay.
Yes. Now, we also got two uncredited writers who I think were partly to do with this before it was finally made. It was like sort of the original writing of it. We got Glenn Morgan, as I say, was uncredited. He did TV stuff in the 80s, 90s, 2000 and 2010s. And he had to do with the writing of Final Destination in 2000, The One in 2001, Willard in 2003, Final Destination 3 in 2006, and Black Christmas in 2006. And then we've got James Wong, as I say, was also uncredited. Did TV stuff in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. And he had to do with writing Final Destination in 2000 and The One in 2001.
Yeah.
So, there are people involved who've got some track record, as it were. The cast, we have Mark Price, who was in the only three films he was in to do with us. We've got Killer Tomatoes Eat France in 1992, Little Devils The Birth in 1993, and Hell's Bells in 2020. Then we have Tony Fields, who didn't do any other films that we're interested in, did a bit of TV work in the 80s and 90s that was sort of supernaturally sort of stuff. Lisa Orgolini, rather, did some TV stuff in the 90s, but other than that, nothing that we'd be interested in. Doug Savant did TV stuff in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. He did Teen Wolf. He was in Teen Wolf in 1985, Paint It Black in 1989, Maniac Cop 3 Badge of Silence in 1992, Godzilla 1998, and he was in The One in 2001, but was uncredited. Then we have Elaine Joyce, who did some TV stuff in the 70s and 80s and was in Motel Hell in 1980. We have Glenn Morgan, who did nothing. And then we have two sort of cameo roles. I've left a few people out because they played minor roles in this film, but the two cameo roles we've got in this, Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
Gene Simmons did some TV stuff in the 80s and 90s, and he was in Runaway in 1984, which is a good film, and Armed Response in 2017. Don't know that one, I must admit. Then we have Ozzy Osbourne, who was in he was in Little Nicky, wasn't he, in 2000? Yeah, in the year 2000. And he was in Ghostbusters in 2016. And then his voice was in We Need to Do Something in 2021. No idea what that is, but there you go. So there you go. So the synopsis for this film says, a bullied teenage boy is devastated after the death of his heavy metal idol, Sammy Kerr. But as Halloween night approaches, he discovers that he may be the only one who can stop Sammy from making a satanic comeback from beyond the grave. Yeah. So, I mean, this is kind of the ultimate in the kind of revenge horror sort of thing. It's got, for me, it kind of has a huge amount of cliches in it, which
Just a bit.
Yeah, it's got it's the hero back from beyond the grave. It's got all the heavy metal cliches,
Yeah.
like Satanism, backmasked vocals, obsessive fans, and all that sort of thing. But it's also got all the revenge horror cliches of bully teenager. There's one pretty girl that he fancies. It doesn't like him at first, then does. The leader of the bullies that won't stop no matter what happens, and then somebody or something helping him from beyond to kind of win the day.
Yeah.
But it was one of the first ones I remember seeing doing that. So I suppose, I mean, there may have been ones before it, but I suppose it kind of started that kind of whole trend, if you like. It's not a bad film, and it
No.
all kind of works, but there's just a few times where it gets a bit kind of,
Yeah, I've got me. There are a few times in it I was sitting there like, something needs to happen. It's getting a bit boring now.
yeah. Um, I think the guest appearances by Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne are good. The Gene Simmons bit is a little bit kind of, it's okay. The Ozzy Osbourne one is funny, purely because of the character he's playing.
What I love about the fact that pretty much every single film that I've seen Ozzy do a cameo in,
Mm,
it's completely opposite to who he is.
mm,
Obviously, in Little Nicky, he plays an angel.
yeah,
Um, in this one, he plays a priest
yeah,
who's trying to sort of preach about the fact that rock music is all about sex and violence and drugs and everything. And I
yeah,
just think it's hilarious, especially as the fact that at the start of it, when they're panning around his bedroom, he's got Ozzy's poster on the wall.
yes. That I
I thought
know.
was hilarious.
It is. That is one thing I would say. All the music in this film were done by the band Fastway. Well, no, there are a few tracks that weren't, but the majority of the music that was written for the film,
Yeah.
was done by the band Fastway. Um, and it's okay, but the problem is that Fastway were nowhere near as good as any of the bands that were on the posters around that
Uh,
kid's room.
right on the posters or on the vinyls or anything. And the fact that not only that, you've got big stars like Ozzy and Gene Simmons in it.
Yeah,
And I would love to have been at that meeting where they're going, look, we want you to be in the film, but we don't want to use any of your music.
it probably cost them too much.
Yeah, but it's just I love the fact that it's just not even once they've like they slipped it in or like even a little mention on the radio or anything. It's just
No. But it's like, I mean, one of the other bands that were one of the other bands that played that there was a song by was Sabu. Paul Sabu, the guitarist, and again they were all right, but they weren't sort of top notch. Sort of,
No.
I mean, Fastway should have been a great band because of the fact that the people who were in it should have made it a great band, but they were kind of okay, but not brilliant. But hey, that's just it was heavy metal, and that was all that mattered. I think didn't really matter too much to the storyline. But it was, I don't know, it was okay. What I did like about it was for a 1980s film. One of the things I did like about it was the fact that it wasn't left with a sort of cliffhanger ending, so that they could make a bloody sequel.
Oh, there is that. Yeah,
Because
it was.
the 80s was the start of all of those franchises, weren't it?
Yeah, it could have been left wide open, but I
I
think
mean,
the
they
fact
could
that
have
they
carried this
rounded it
on.
up.
They could have carried this on as a franchise onto straight to video or whatever, but
Yeah,
it could have been done as a franchise. The return of Sammy Kerr and
yeah. I think the fact they wrapped it up. Well, I don't know. It suggested they wrapped it up. Obviously, just by the fact that he gets hurt by water and it's destroyed. But I don't know. It can be. It does feel like it's all wrapped up. But
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. It's just my big issue with this is, and I get the fact that at the time it was going on and stuff that was in the news and things like that, and people thought about it. But yeah, like you said, it's very cliche. It's very stereotypical. Like rock music is all about Satan and devil worship and
yeah,
witchcraft and stuff like that. And people that are into it are all weirdos and outcasts, and it's just like,
yeah. No, no. And the bizarre thing is that I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are heavy metal fans who kind of live up to that image
oh
for
yeah,
some God knows why, because they don't. I mean, not really what it's all about at all.
no,
And but it just kind of annoys me a little bit that people kind of buy into all of that thing. But then this was years ago. This is 1986, for Christ's sake. I mean,
yeah.
1986. How old was I in 1986? 97 years. I was 23. How about that? I was. Is that right? Yeah, 23. I was. We're trying to work out how long it was before you were born.
86. So that would have been 5 years.
You were -5. I was 23.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's as I say, it's not a bad film, and
No,
it's
it's definitely one. It's not. It's like I know we've said this about a lot of them. It's not one that I would go out of my way to watch again. But if it was on, I'd happily sit there and watch it.
yeah,
But it's not one that I would definitely go. Do you know what? I really fancy watching that film.
it's worth a laugh if nothing else. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's not meant to be funny, but there are bits of it that are, and it just kind of like if you, I think if you were sitting with a group of mates and watching this, it'd be good fun to do.
yeah.
Just sort of like look at it and go, God, look at how daft this is, you know.
What I
Um,
do like about this as well, though, I will say, is the fact that a lot of horror films and films that came out in mid to late 80s had a lot of um, unnecessary nudity in it, like we said before.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, they have a scene in this, but it goes along with the film,
yeah. It
and
fits it
there's
in.
no more. There's no more, especially the fact that there's chances for it. There's
Yeah,
no more sort of in your face or over the top beauty.
yeah, yeah. I must admit, I mean, it's very true. Well, it's you used to get it in the horror films, but I think sci-fi was a bit more prone to doing that than the horror, to be honest. Don't know why, but I don't know. Very strange. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a look. I mean, it's worth going back over, sort of like to remember what it was like in the rock scene in the 80s and that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
Even if you just go back to see where sort of Ozzy started doing his film career,
Yeah.
which is still a very bizarre thing to say.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so yeah, there you go. I mean, two short horror films, which they're all right and they're worth a look at. And Trick or Treat is always good. It's good for a laugh, if nothing else. It's a good bit of fun to have on a Halloween night, I think.
Yeah,
And it's got some reasonable effects and some reasonable sort of like death scenes and things. It's not too gory.
no, there
So
is there is one blunder in it which I did notice
what's that?
when um when he gets grounded.
Yeah,
His mum goes out with the guy that turns up. When she bends down to talk to him, you see the boom mic.
I didn't
And
notice that. I must
oh,
admit.
I sat there and I looked and I was like, that's a very weird item to have. And then it comes down a little bit more. I was like, oh, that's the sound mic. Okay.
Doesn't surprise me. But
The
yeah,
fact that it's the fact that there's only really that in the whole film.
yeah.
I think it's not a reasonably bad film. I think.
No, it's all right. And so there's some decent effects and some interesting bits.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, have a watch and see what you think, and let us know if you think it's absolute garbage, and whatever, you can let us know. And that sort of thing. Next week we will be doing two more short Halloween films, and we will be doing the feature film All Hallows Eve, which was the first feature film to have the Art the Clown in it. So that'd be good fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Scott, for joining me in the gallery.
It's okay. I'm glad that I could stay in focus.
That's all right. That's all part of being the ghoul. Or something I don't know. So yeah, it's everything and stuff in betweens, and everybody out there have a spooky Halloween and a marvelous time doing trick or treating or whatever you're doing, or eating monsters, or sucking the blood out of human beings, or baked beings, or helicopters, or galoshes, or whatever. And we will see you next week when we will be in a slightly different spooky place. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
The Sciforror Film Podcast.